Welcome to Modern Latin America in 15 minutes. My name is Dr. Kim Richardson, and today we are going to discuss independence in Portuguese America. This should be called Brazil's political emancipation as it slowly evolves from colony to kingdom to empire. If you look at the Colonial Period map of Brazil, it is not much different than the post-colonial map of Brazil. There is going to be an exception down here in the south, but for the most part it stays intact. What we want to talk about are these things here, these 7 points. Hopefully it'll make sense as we progress through them. Very good. Number 1, the Portuguese were economically tied in with the British, and they had been since the 17th century. The British made war on Napoleon Bonaparte during the French Revolution and Napoleonic Wars that followed it, and as such, Napoleon Bonaparte, especially when he was considering, at least I would think he's considering, of taking over Spain, he orders Portugal to stop trading with the British. The Portuguese refuse, so he marches through Spain to conquer Portugal. Portugal sees that this is going to happen and says, well, I'm not going to stay here while we get taken over by Napoleon Bonaparte, so they flee to Brazil. They come all the way over here and land in South America. This is the first example of a continent, not a continent, but a monarchy from Europe coming to any of their colonies. Not only do they come to the colonies, they're going to make it the empire. They first land in Bahia, northeast of Brazil, and then they make their way down to Rio de Janeiro, which becomes the capital. So first we got Braganzas in Brazil. That is because the last name of the monarchy, John the Sixth, he wouldn't be John the Sixth until his mother dies, but John is going to be Braganza. The first thing he does is he realizes that we need to loosen the bands of mercantilism. In other words, we need to be able to trade with other people. So he declares, even before he gets to Rio de Janeiro, that he's going to allow trade to occur among friendly nations. Whereas in North America, it's going to take something like a revolution in order to allow free trade. Here you have semi-free trade simply by a declaration. He then makes Rio de Janeiro the capital of the entire empire. That is important. Here is a great image of it. You can still go visit today if you wish in Rio de Janeiro. A great book has been written about this regarding Tropical Versailles, all about this region right here and what it was like. Immediately, thousands of people descend on Rio de Janeiro and make it the empire's capital. And it is a great place to have a capital of an empire, as it has great harbors, great way to protect the harbors. It's not only that, but it's a beautiful place to go, not just for soccer, but for visiting or research is what I normally do myself. Well, now he made it his capital, after the Napoleonic Wars. Napoleon Bonaparte was defeated in 1815, 1814, then finally in 1815, and then the Congress of Vienna decided to try to figure out how to put Humpty Dumpty back together again, and they asked John the Sixth. By this point, he's just about to become John the Sixth. He says, John, why are you living in a colony still now that we've defeated Napoleon Bonaparte? John says, because I like it here. And he says, well, you can't live in a colony. You have got to at least elevate it to a kingdom. So that's what he does. He decrees in 1815 the elevation of Brazil to a kingdom. As it says right here in this great primary document, Don João VI, by the grace of God, Prince Regent of Portugal and the Algarves, in Africa, Guinea, and the conquest, navigation, commerce, Ethiopia, Arabia, Persia, and Indian, etc., make it known to whom this letter of law shall come, that they are being constantly in my royal mind, yada, yada, yada. Portugal, Algarves, and Brazil shall form from henceforth one only and united kingdom. So now they're united. Neither one is a colony, neither one is a mother country. However, in Portugal, it seems that they are now the colony and that Brazil is the mother country, because after all, the king is in Brazil and they're way up here a long ways away. So they decide that they have got to find some way to recolonize Brazil. An uprising takes place right up here in Oporto, Revolution of Oporto, Revolução de Oporto, and then makes its way down to Lisbon. And in this revolution, in 1820, they say, hey, Dom João, you got to come back or else you're going to lose your throne. He has no choice. He doesn't want to lose his throne even though he likes it in Brazil. So he takes everything and he comes back to Portugal. But he leaves behind his son. So they're going to have a revolution here for a little while. They're going to have something called a Cortes. A Cortes is a parliament. The same term for Spanish, for Spain as well. And here, so they have that here in Portugal. But then in Brazil, the king, the prince, not the king, the prince, Pedro, is back as regent here. If it is a combined, a dual monarchy, you know, an empire that's a dual kingdom, so to speak, then he's going to stay here and rule. Now the parliament, Cortes, orders him to come back. And he says, no. Actually, he says, eu fico. I am going to stay. So princely Defiance, he refuses to go back. The parliament is very upset and keeps on sending nasty, threatening letters, but he simply refuses to go back. But he sees the writing on the wall, and he says that when his dad, John VI by this point, John VI, goes back to Portugal, he says, listen, Pedro, if the people here want to declare independence like they're doing in Spanish America, I want you to lead them. That's what he says. So he does. But he has to make sure that they really want independence. So he goes on a tour throughout the empire, the kingdom at this point, Kingdom of Brazil, to find out if people are interested. And he finds that they are interested, or at least not disinterested. They're going to at least do it. So he is going to declare independence. Now I want to read this because it is so important. The Declaration of Independence. What happens here, it's not the declaration, but it's when he declares independence. What happens is that a letter carrier is ordered to send some letters to the prince. The prince is trying to decide, he's in Sao Paulo at this time, whether or not he should declare independence. And it says this, the prince ordered that I read aloud the letters transported. From the Cortes, remember that's a parliament, a letter from Dom João, his dad, another from the princess, another from José Bonifacio. Now that is his prime minister. He is the one that's truly leading this movement for independence. And still another from Chamberlain, the secret agent of the prince. The Cortes demanded the immediate return of the prince and the imprisonment and trial of José Bonifacio. The prince recommended prudence and asked that the prince heed his minister. José Bonifacio told the prince that he must choose one of two roads to follow. Leave immediately for Portugal and hand himself over to the Cortes, as was the situation of Dom João VI, his dad, or remain and proclaim the independence of Portugal. Dom Pedro, trembling with anger, seized the letters from my hands and crumpled them. He threw them on the ground and stomped on them. Dom Pedro walked silently toward our horses at the side of the road. Suddenly, he halted in the middle and said, the Cortes is persecuting me, and calling me an adolescent and a Brazilian. Well now, let them see their adolescent in action. From today on, our relations with them are finished. I want nothing more from the Portuguese government, and I proclaim Brazil forevermore separated from Portugal. Independence. According to legend, he draws his sword and says, independence or death. He may or may not have said that, but he declares independence. Declaration of Independence. What does that mean? This image is awesome, right? Because here he is with his sword drawn, declaring independence. Here are these guys over here saying, independence. What's that? How is that going to change for me? And the answer is it's not going to change at all. Nothing is going to change except you get independence for Portugal, for Brazil. Remember, not revolution, just independence. He has now acclaimed the Emperor of Brazil. Here is the cathedral in Rio de Janeiro. Now, though, he says, I want independence, just like we said we wanted independence in North America, July 4th, 1776. Now you got to get it. There are about 7 major, at this point, 7 major ports, and most of them have troops from Portugal. All he has to do is starve them into submission. So he hires this guy, a wonderful character in history, Lord Cochrane, who got into trouble with the law for insider trading and whatnot in England, and was ready to be hired out for his services. So he's hired by Dom Pedro, and Pedro hires him to crush the Portuguese so they could accomplish the aim of independence. This he does by surrounding the ports and then starving them into submission, while Dom Pedro's troops came from the other side and starved them into submission. So the point is this. They declare independence, but not revolution. They get independence with very little bloodshed. Brazil is now an independent country. Now this was the shortest of lectures because that's all I wanted to make sure and emphasize. Here are some comparisons. Spanish America, very violent, and some people did indeed argue for democracy or at least republicanism. Portuguese America, not very violent. And very rare did you see anybody advocating something like democracy. It did occur in a few places. There were some liberal priests, for example, but it's very rare. Spanish America is going to divide up into a whole bunch of smaller countries. Portuguese America is going to, with the exception of the Spanish-speaking most southern part, which truly didn't belong to them anyway, is going to remain intact. Next time we're going to look at how that remained intact. But for now, keep that in mind. It's going to be a monarchy, whereas for the most part, Spanish America was not a monarchy. As a monarchy, it's going to be very conservative. It's not going to be conservative as an absolutist. They're going to retain a constitution, but it's going to be conservative. So that is the independence, super-duper quick, of Brazil.